to our annual career advancement panel and essentially the Ask Me Anything workshop. I am the Vice President of the Cal Poly Pomona College of Business Administration, the CBA alumni chapter, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be here with you all tonight. For those of you who may be new to our community, the CBA chapter is proud to be one of the largest, in fact, the largest alumni chapter at Cal Poly Pomona, boasting over 600 members, which you are all now a part of here. And we would hope for those who are students looking to graduate, you may consider becoming a member of our CBA chapter. Our mission is pretty simple. It's to create a powerful community of successful leaders and to pay that success forward to our students and connect with the university as well as networking and connecting with our alumni. So we do this by pretty much providing incredible social networking opportunities, mentorship programs, and career advancement workshop, just like this one right over here. Which ensures that students and graduates and alumni have the tools they need to thrive moving forward. We always love seeing our Bronco family come together. Many of you who might have attended our recent events might remember our highly successful events that we've done over the past academic year, and that includes our Contract 101 event that just happened a number of weeks ago, as well as our CBA painting mixer, one of the more exciting ones that many of our members appreciate. And of course, our Cornerstone annual Dining with Broncos events, which were all incredibly well received, I might add, and showcased the sheer talent and camaraderie of our alumni. Now, staying connected is essentially the best way to leverage this incredible network. So I do want to highlight some of our important parts of the CBA chapter, which is our upcoming events. And we don't have too many upcoming events as we are closing off in this academic year, but please go ahead and mark your calendars for some of our fantastic future events. We have our next event, C-Barn, hosted by UBSS. We have the AI Info session occurring on Tuesday, April 28th, as well as closing up the academic year with the Financial Literacy Workshop occurring both on Tuesday, April 14th, as well as Thursday, April 30th. So we do hope to see you all there. And now it's my absolute great delight to introduce a true powerhouse and a guiding light for our business students, our moderator for this evening, Beth Lee. I want to talk just a quick bit about Beth Lee. She is the lead career coach for the College of Business Administration. Now, drawing on a brilliant background that spans extensive corporate roles and instructions for higher education, Beth Lee brings an unparalleled wealth of real-world guidance to Cal Poly Pomona. We're truly fortunate to have her here at Cal Poly, as well as hosting and moderating our event tonight. She masterfully connects the Central Career Center with our very own and very new CBA Career Hub. So that's the location where you'll be able to find Beth Lee. And in there, this will empower our students to navigate the professional paths, their strategies, with bringing in an open-mindedness and absolute confidence to having the most successful path that they can post Cal Poly and as well as while our students are in Cal Poly. Beth's remarkable contributions to Cal Poly include her pivotal work in the university's Career Makers Framework and the Career Development Plan, which have both fundamentally transformed how our students build strong, sustainable careers from day one. He's a dedicated mentor, and you will likely know that if you've ever been to the new Career Hub, and an innovative facilitator, which I have experienced myself, as well as a fostering student-employer relationships. One of the great values of attending Cal Poly Pomona is to network with Beth Lee. So with that, it's my great honor once again to have her leading our distinguished panel today. And please join me in giving her a very warm virtual round of applause. Beth Lee, off to you.
Thank you, Albert. What a lovely intro. Pleased to be here. Thank you so much. And just want to give shout outs to all of our wonderful alumni who are on our panel today and all of our alumni who are in the chat as well as our students. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. And again, to Alumni Relations for helping coordinate this event and bring us all together today. Do want to highlight for our students, just a friendly reminder, we've got the College of Business Career Expo coming up on Tuesday, March 24th. So take all these wonderful nuggets that are going to be shared with you and bring that into your development. Feel free to come join us in the College of Business Administration Career Hub Mondays and Tuesdays at any time all day to kind of get support, get development and preparation for that recruiting event we've got coming up. We've also got some wonderful alumni who are volunteering to do resume review. You can find all of that on Handshake, and I'll drop the form link in the chat for anyone who wants to sign up for that. But for now, I want to highlight our wonderful panelists. And Jason, we'll go ahead and start with you if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Sure, happy to. Good evening, everybody. My name is Jason Yardley. I am an MBA graduate from Cal Poly Pomona back in a long time ago in the 1900s, 1998. I graduated with my MBA. My entire career has been in healthcare, the business of hospitals and health systems. After college, spent 10 years in consulting and then went into outsourcing and have worked for private equity firms pretty much ever since then, or the companies owned by private equity firms. This is currently my fourth time being a CEO or president of a private equity owned or private equity backed company. I've had 3 successful company exits or sales of companies, and I'm currently the president of a company called Patient Funding Alternatives. And excited to be here.
Thank you so much, Jason. We're thrilled to have you. And let's go ahead and head over to Megan. So share and introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. My name is Megan Shadrick. I am an undergrad graduate, I suppose. I studied from Cal Poly. I studied business management and human resources. I actually graduated last May. So more of a fresh start, to the workforce. But super happy to be here and excited to share what I've learned so far, what I've benefited from, maybe what I wish I would have known. Yeah, thank you all for having me.
And congratulations on your recent graduation and all of your success since. Giovanni, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Giovanni Trujillo. I am an undergrad from Cal Poly's Business Administration School. I studied accounting. I am currently the culinary director and executive chef for the Harris Ranch Resort. I did move on after being right smack in the middle of COVID when I was attending Cal Poly. So that was a very interesting time. And then I went to get my MBA at the University of Redlands. Now I'm just enjoying life.
All right. Thank you so much. And Albert will also be joining us and answering questions. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Albert.
Thank you, Bethany, once again. Thank you so much. And hello, everybody. I am Albert Fattal. I began my academic journey as an undergrad in science, technology, and society, where I did focus on artificial intelligence as well as blockchain, and had a relatively successful both publication during academia and research. And I also simultaneously did a minor in computer information system, which truly allowed me to get my hands into that polytechnic experience, into the programs. Now, following that, I continued my academic career once again at Cal Poly, pursuing the Master of Business Administration in our esteemed CBA that we are all here for. During that time, I was fortunate enough to participate at an internship at the Fed, where I currently am employed and currently am a civil service. Now, I will say that one of my favorite hobbies of all time include chocolates and ice cream and tea. And I do encourage all of you to have as much chocolate as you find fun. Now, with that, I'll pass it back to you, Bethany. Thank you.
Of course. Thanks, Albert. All right. So our wonderful panel, we'll go ahead and start with the question. And I want to encourage folks in the chat, please feel free to drop questions in the chat. We'll be kind of turning to your questions in between some prepared questions that were gathered ahead of time. To kind of start things off, though, what was the transition like for all of you from college to career?
Anybody want to go first? Well, I'll start. So my career kind of started during my undergraduate years, anyways, but I'll tell kind of a two-part story. One is I thought I was going to have an athletic career, actually. I had walked on to the UCLA basketball team. I blew my knee out 3 weeks in and needed a job. And so I had a friend of the family that was kind enough to give me a job as a registrar in the emergency room at Torrance Memorial in Southern California. And so that's literally where I started my career in healthcare, was there over 30 years ago. And so my career was, nights and weekends of working in the ER and sitting behind the desk when you walk in and somebody gives you your insurance card and that sort of thing to register people. And the only reason I even bring that up is that being really the part where my career started is because I was working as many students do throughout undergraduate, and I went straight to graduate school. So I went straight from undergraduate to graduate school. And when I graduated, I had the opportunity when I got my MBA to then go into consulting. And the reason I bring it up is because when I went into consulting and I interviewed for consulting, after I was hired and I spoke to the people that interviewed me, and I said, I don't have any real experience. I'm not a consultant. I'm fresh out of MBA school. Why would you hire me? And they said, no, you've got 4 or 5 years of healthcare experience. And I said, no, I just worked as a registrar in the ER. And they're like, yeah, you've got hands-on experience in healthcare, which is something that's really interesting to us. And so the reason I bring it up is because oftentimes, I think that students don't realize that while you're working in almost any job, you are building experience that can be applied to other things. And so, granted, I didn't know anything about consulting. And when I told them I didn't know anything about consulting, they said, yeah, we can teach you how to be a consultant, but you already know some things about healthcare. So, almost regardless of where you work, you can be learning things about customer service or experience or technologies or other things that you might not realize can then really be applied afterwards, even if they're in jobs that you think that might be not be applicable from kind of one thing to another. And then I was just super fortunate to get into consulting and get to sit in the room with some really incredible, partners and senior managers and those types of things, where I just soaked it all up over time to learn how those people acted and performed in their careers.
Some really good insight there. Megan, I thought I saw you buzzing in.
Yes. Yeah, I wasn't sure if we were going to go back in order, but I guess we are. So a couple things I didn't mention in my introduction. It's been a long day, so forgive me. So I'm a financial advisor now. I've been working with my company, Modern Woodman, since 2023. I did their internship back in college. But I'm also now sitting on the board of the CBA chapter for the Alumni Association as one of the student engagement officers or directors. So super excited to still be involved on campus. My younger sister is still going to Pomona. So I just love being around. I live in Laverne, so super close. So my transition from college to career. So I would say I took every opportunity I possibly could when I was at Pomona. I just loved being involved. I don't think there was something I didn't do. I started as an athlete. I was running track. I was running 400, 800 for our track team at Pomona. I did that for about 3 years. I transitioned over to student government, was doing that full time. I got super involved as a leader in student athletics and found my way to student government for the campus. Ended my career in my 5th year at Pomona as vice president of ASI. And I loved that. I learned so much. But during that time as a student and my involvement on campus, I was also taking job opportunities as well. So I actually worked at the farm store for about 4 years. Yeah, 4.5 years. I was there for a long time. And then I was doing a couple internships. I actually had an HR consulting internship because my major was MHR. I was studying business management and HR. And so I took a little time doing that. I had an internship in athletics after I finished my career as an athlete. So that was really fun. And then I also, back in 2023, did my internship with Modern Woodman, learning about what it takes to be a financial advisor. And what attracted me so much to that role was the values of the company, and the lifestyle and the freedom that I would have as an advisor, as an entrepreneur. Something that I think, looking back, I might have liked to minor in entrepreneurship, but maybe that's something I would look more into in my MBA, and that's something I'm actually very excited to be starting that process, my admissions process. I didn't go into a master's program after I graduated. I decided I wanted to get some real world experience first outside of college. Even though I feel like I did quite a bit in college, I learned a lot then, but I knew I wanted to, step on full time somewhere and gain some experience. So that was kind of my transition to college into the career that I'm in now. And I'm looking forward to doing my MBA, actually, Jason, hopefully at UCLA. That's my goal. So that's where I'm at.
Nice. Congratulations. We're excited for you. I know we had a number of questions about resumes. So, in general, what will make someone's resume stand out? And then we had a couple kind of follow-up questions. I'm dropping everything in the chat for folks following along. Like what, if any, certifications that come to mind to maybe consider? And a question I get from students a lot, whether it's a resume or when they're meeting folks, like, how do you stand out without being obnoxious? Like, what's that fine line, that balance to maintain?
All right. Well, I could chime in on this. As a hiring manager myself, one of the things that actually does stand out that I would like to see that I pick out immediately is anything to do with customer service, right? Whether you've been a cashier or if you engaged with a customer at any level, that is something I always want to see and I'll pick from them because they understand people, right? It's very difficult to deal with individuals, especially like if you're in some kind of service, any kind of service, right? Whether it be hospitality, directly dealing with customer service, right? In terms of, let's say, credit, anything. That is one of those things that's just gonna like help you out. I think I saw a question in there. Does LinkedIn is still relevant, or does that count? Like, yes, technically it does. Like, don't push that away because actually a lot of the connections that you have, and I think I still deal with, especially some of the panelists here, we communicate through LinkedIn, right? And we have other people that connect with us. So don't don't look away from that. But to go back to that, customer service is a big thing, and any kind of relevant experience that is just how it helps you in the direction that you're going with your particular career. For example, in mine, right, I'm looking for any kind of supervisory positions, leading teams, any of those things that were once soft skills are now major hard skills when you're going into management.
Thank you, Giovanni. Anyone else regarding resumes, certifications, or finding that balance when you're connecting with folks?
I'll toss in a few other things. Also, as a hiring manager, from executives to staff level, right? A few other things. One, I would say to the extent that you can include results in what you describe. So saying that I manage people is different from saying I manage 10 people or I manage 20 people or I manage one or two people, right? Or I reduce costs. Well, what was that like? So even if it's not oftentimes that you're looking for big numbers or results or whatever else, it's just that by even putting in some of those numbers, it shows that you're thinking about what the end result is and you're thinking about value and you're thinking about driving some of those things. So to the extent that on almost anything in your resume, you can sort of put in something related to value or results, and you'll probably hear me say value 100 times over the next hour and a half or 2 hours. I think that there's a lot that goes on with that. And then in terms of sort of the interviewing process to whether it's being pushy or whatever else and not be obnoxious, I'd say two other things. Especially if you're early in your career, I don't think that hiring managers necessarily are looking for you to have the answers coming in your first job or anything else. People are looking for fire in the belly, right? Most of us can teach you what the role is going to be. I can't teach you how to be excited. I can't teach you how to really want this. And there's sort of that fire in the belly, I refer to it, that people are looking for. And the other thing I think that sets people apart is questions and homework. Have you looked into what this company is? Have you looked up the person that you're interviewing with? And do you ask questions? You don't have to tell me you looked me up on LinkedIn. You don't have to tell me you looked up this company. You can tell me by the questions that you ask, right? You can tell me because you can say, hey, I understand you're in healthcare, and do you deal with these types of clients? Or you can say different things that really I identify that I can tell, oh, this person did a little research. I like that. That's also an indication you've got some fire in the belly. You took this serious enough to spend some time to look something up, to then ask some really good questions. That's not obnoxious. That differentiates you, because trust me, there are many more people I get, especially entry level positions, that you say, what questions do you have? None. I'm good. You know, that type of thing. That's a bigger turnoff than anything else versus somebody who has actually done some homework and looked into this.
I'm going to chime in a little bit and piggyback off of that, because that is very important. You as a hiring manager, one of the things that like really sticks out like a sore thumb is that when you definitely, like you said, if you any questions and you got a blank stare, you're not prepared, right? That is going to be the biggest turnoff. Is that, then why should I give you a job when I got 100 other applicants that are just as hungry, maybe even more? Right? If you really want this particular job, you're going to ask questions, you're going to do the research, right? Whatever is relevant for your particular field that you're going in, right? You really want to do your homework, right? And keep that conversation flowing naturally and stay on topic. That's another thing that I see that people deviate from, especially on the younger generations now. Do not give away anything that is not relevant to the interview itself. I don't need to hear that, you were let go from your previous position or anything like that, because that's like an automatic next, right? Stay on topic. Just say, you know what, I had previous opportunities and I'm looking for my next big venture, right? Or whatever it is. Don't disclose anything that could harm you, because that's just, when you're a name on a resume and you made it to the interviewing process, you did better than the majority of your competition, and you want to continue going.
Yeah, build on that positive momentum. Perfect. Albert, do you mind if we tap you for certifications?
I would be delighted to. So, certifications, there's a plethora of different certifications. And I think one of the overwhelming question, particularly for our young adults moving into their profession, is in addition to this excellent education of Cal Poly, what certificate should I consider proceeding with? What I might like to offer as some advice to consider is that with all the different certificates that are available, having a transferable certificate might be valuable to consider. And what I mean by that is there are times when I've heard folks mention that they are interested in undergoing a certificate that is offered by a random social media account, which essentially is my suspicion is that it's a curriculum that was developed by some random person. I mean, it doesn't have to be a random person. In many cases, it can also be a relatively prominent social media figure within the industry. However, with that, I'm not entirely sure the longevity of that type of certificate. So to have a consensus in pursuing a certificate from an institution that is well recognized might look a lot better on your resume, as well as trying to sell yourself in your endeavor moving on to a profession. So there's a lot to say in certificate. I have a lot of opinions about technical certificates and maybe less so around certificates where my colleagues on here have greater success in, for example, HR. So I will speak a little bit about technical certificates. Much like I've mentioned, there's a lot of technical videos on YouTube. I mean, I'm sure you'll learn something undergoing those certificates from a YouTuber or YouTube channel. Instead of that, I might consider actually moving forward to an industry recognized certificate. There are many of them. Again, I will highlight a technical certificate. Many certificates offered through Google are essentially free, as well as LinkedIn Learning. That's another one previously called Linda. If you recall that, LinkedIn Learning eventually purchased Linda, which is the company offering these certificates, about maybe 7 years ago or so. So some of these certificates that are recognized based on their brand might go a long ways. You're likely going to learn a lot from any of those certificates, but it may be important to emphasize a certificate that is transferable. that has a good name to it, that can be recognized when you are applying to a career. So that's my perspective, and I'll send it back to you, Bethany.
Perfect. And I'll hit on LinkedIn just briefly to kind of build off of what Jason was saying. Like, we are hearing in the Career Center and from our alumni who are recruiters that recruiters are still actively using LinkedIn to do active recruiting through like cold DM reach out and things like that, as well as using it to verify and validate information. So we're still hearing that's really relevant. As far as bots, just in general, I've actually read a couple of studies that even just suggest in general that around 50% or just over 50% of the internet in general is run by bots. So something fun for us to marinate on for another time. But I know that that's really frustrating for folks to kind of deal with that reality, especially in a resource like LinkedIn. But even though those bots are out there, we're still hearing a lot of folks, humans, are using it to do recruiting and outreach. So I do see, though, our next question is
Just real quick, before you
oh,
move on
go for it, Jason. Yeah, please.
I'll just tell you from a LinkedIn perspective.
Yeah.
Not only do I communicate with a lot of people through LinkedIn, it's almost my second email. I feel like there's tons of people that reach out, and we'll have conversations and then move off of there to email and what have you. While we post positions out publicly, when my recruiters are looking for people, they start at LinkedIn. They use it as a tool. We put in the criteria for what we're looking for. Our recruiting application, which is a third-party application outside of LinkedIn, is connected to LinkedIn, and it talks back and forth with it. So we start all of our recruiting with LinkedIn. I frankly, regardless of how much you actually use it, I think recruiting or LinkedIn is almost a requirement, like having a resume at this point. Because I can tell you, if I'm actually really interested in you, the first thing I'm going to do is go look you up on LinkedIn, even before I likely search for you on the internet, if it's, depending on what type of role it is.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful.
If I could add on to that as well, I think any way for an individual to market themselves is an opportunity that we should be taking, right? So I know LinkedIn, like we talked a little bit about, bots taking over, which you're right, Beth. I mean, we see that everywhere. It is still a site for us to market ourselves on, right? Whether it's our skills, our experiences, the talents that we have naturally, that's something where people can just look us up like any other social media site, right? And that doesn't just go for LinkedIn. I think especially for those in my generation, taking into consideration what other social media we are posting on, that is where we tell the world who we are and what we do, what matters to us, what doesn't matter. So I think kind of going back to that question about how do you stand out without being obnoxious, in my opinion, at least when you're starting out, I don't really think there is anything, to say to be obnoxious. I mean, that's just putting yourself out there and telling the world what you've done, the skills that you've developed, all of the success that you've had as a student stepping into the real world. Like, there is nothing wrong with telling people about that and putting yourself out there and showing hiring managers or companies what you're all about. That'll get you so much further. I think that question might be rooted a little bit more in maybe anxiety on where to start, or how, if they're, what the moves that they're making are right. It doesn't matter, right? Just put yourself out there, do what you need to do, express yourself, and market yourself on things like LinkedIn. Take advantage of all those, because before you know it, somebody will see that, and there are opportunities and doors will open.
Great. Yeah, thank you. We had a question about keeping it in tech. Like, how can we talk a little bit about how AI is changing job prospects for new college graduates? Looking into first entry-level jobs, folks are really worried about crafting skills that won't help them in their career advancement.
I would love to talk about that. So I also see that Alma also had a similar question here. There's no question that AI as a technology is radically transforming everything that we are basically going through. And it's having a heavy effect, particularly around what I imagine are students trying to shift into the labor market. I would consider that artificial intelligence very much has the capacity to augment some of the most challenging quantitative outputs that you will be able to do in your career moving forward, potentially, right? But where you might have a distinct advantage in this new fourth industrial, it's not that new, but it's the fourth industrial revolution that we are moving into, which includes technologies such as AI, as well as blockchain and lots of other innovations, and the future of quantum computing, which is still yet to be seen, but may happen in the future. What can you do with that? You could focus on your human condition, the state of being a human being, the state of communicating with other friends and managers and bosses in a way that is likable, in a way that is approachable. And there are many different types of personalities. So there's no such thing. In the philosophy of pedagogical learning, as well as exhibiting some kind of format to apply to many aspects of your life. Everybody does it in a different way. Some people are introverts, some people are extroverts. Then we've got a mix and many others in between. But what stands as being extremely important, particularly with artificial intelligence, with what seemingly appears to be extremely competent at doing quantitative work, so augmenting your math and spreadsheets and whatever else you might be doing in your career. What AI isn't doing so well at right now that can strategically differentiate you is being a human being, the human condition, to understand and being sensitive to others, professional to others, compose communications in a way that humans connect with each other. Some of the challenges likely with trying to get a job is that human communication isn't occurring and everything is being managed by the AI bots, as we are discussing. The resumes are being passed through to the automated system. And what could be advantageous is to use your skill as a human to connect to the right recruiter and put in an effort to be compassionate to the recruiter. Because if you don't do that, it's potentially unlikely that your resume is going to go much further. I mean, your resume is really important, but that differentiator might be to tap into your human capabilities and don't rely too much on the AI in terms of the connections. Be a great person to another person and be likable. And for some, it's a hard thing to do, so you must practice that. I'm always practicing. I don't think I'm quite there yet, but that's because I think we all agree that we're all lifelong learners, and we are learners that need to adapt. And adoption is the next phase of this talk that I am expressing here. So in the past, it used to be the case that a person can go get a 4-year degree and specialize in a topic, and they then, over years of professional experience, become the subject matter expert. I don't know that that's no longer the case. I think that's no longer the case. I think now, with the advancements in artificial intelligence, you can essentially tap into the most competent in your subject matter expertise skill sets through the augmentation of AI. So you might not need to focus for the next, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 years becoming a professional in one field. What is important is what's really hard to do. And that is to be agile, to be nimble, to change the skill sets that you're able to accumulate over time. Don't just focus on becoming a subject matter expert in just one item, which is an awesome thing to do. And of course, we should all strive for that. But more importantly, to be nimble and to have humility in picking up a new skill and a new maybe job role and being comfortable shifting. Again, learning new things and shifting happens to be really challenging for many people, but that might be that differentiator that can bring you great success in your career.
Well said, Albert.
Thank you.
I mean, I think some of the other things around AI is use it. First off, I use AI every day, I bet. Whether it's asking a question about a simple thing, helping me think through things. Heck, I drop financial statements in it and help it ask questions. I mean, there's all types of stuff that I use it for kind of over and over again. So one is having some capabilities with it. And there's all types of different tools now. So depending on kind of where your focus is, also understanding what some of those tools are. I sit on a few boards, not just at Cal Poly, but also other companies. Today, I was talking to a CTO of a board of a company board I recently joined, and I was blown away by how they are using AI to build workflows and tools and automation and things that I was totally unaware of and was leaps and bounds ahead of a previous company that I was with. And so it just reminded me a couple of things around you got to keep being curious and you got to be flexible, right? You got to be ready to figure out that, businesses are trying to drive cost reductions, they're trying to drive efficiencies, they're trying to make things easier both internally and for their customers. And if you can sort of ride that wave and you can have that flexibility, and a way of demonstrating that flexibility is a lot about what Albert talked about, which is having some of those soft skills around communication. And those are the things that often aren't taught. And in fact, I can tell you at Cal Poly, we're actually working right now on building some career courses that focus on more of the soft skills, and educating and driving expectations around how you communicate, how you do things like hold eye contact. I've got a couple of teenagers at home, and I can tell you, number one, I think it would take a crowbar to get them out of this house to actually go interact face to face with people. And secondarily, the majority of their communication seems to be with wearing a headset and a microphone and talking to people that they do not see. Now, they might be killing aliens or warlords or whatever else somewhere around the world with people that they've lightly built relationships with. But I think that those soft skills are actually getting more and more scarce, with more people coming into the workplace. And that can be a huge way to differentiate yourself is like I talked about before, doing some of that homework, but then even just being able to hold eye contact with somebody and have a conversation and to be able to ask questions. It's shocking these days how hard it is to find some of those qualities. And I know when some of us go in and do resume reviews, which, by the way, resume reviews turn a lot more into storytelling conversations than they do about resume reviews. But having some of those skills is incredibly important in an age of AI. It makes them even more elevated.
Just to add on to that, I did see a report on Forbes saying that majority of the newer the generation and the college grads nowadays, the reason they're not being able to get hired onto jobs is because they cannot communicate effectively. So that's going to be one of those things that they're going to be looking at heavily is how well you communicate. How well can you write an email, right? One of the problems was that people nowadays got so used to texting, right? Shorthand conversations that they cannot compose a professional email.
And trust me, no matter where we are in our collective careers right now, none of us had it figured out when we were coming out of college, right? We had to work at all of this. We had to work at building relationships. We had to, some of us grew up in older times where maybe there weren't the same video games and we drank out of hoses in the front yard and, had to survive till the light came on at night to get home, those types of things. It was a different life and time. But still, getting into the work world, you had to figure out communication. You had to figure out how to have conversations. And it came through practice and it came through trial and error and kind of working it through. And so, but it's amazing that today, what I would have thought were really basic skills in the past, all of a sudden have become elevated skills because the world itself has changed. And I think people just don't have that much face-to-face interaction, the working in teams, and we've been talking about this career course. One of the things we've been talking about is to teach people how to sit in a performance review. So many people, it feels like, and this might seem overly critical, maybe I'm the old guy on the phone, and so don't have quite as much gray hair, but I'm working on it. A lot of people haven't had negative feedback almost ever in their life. And so to sit in a performance review and hear you could be doing this thing better or whatever else doesn't mean you get to have mom or dad sit in the performance review with you, right? It means that you got to figure it out and sit there and work your way through. And once again, I'm not trying to be overly critical. It's just that's literally the reality that's showing up at times in the workforce. And nobody believes anymore that you got to work for the same place for 40 years, and you get your gold watch and you retire. I don't think anybody believes that anymore. But there are still expectations of you join the workforce and you've got a good skill set and you learn how to work with people and communicate and what have you. And just encourage people to work on those skill sets. We did not have it figured out when we came into the workforce. We figured it out along the way, and hopefully our education helped prepare us for that along the way as well.
So thanks, everyone. So Wes had a question about like how does a recent graduate navigate the onslaught of ghost jobs and the feeling or the reality that like quote unquote inside candidates already are lined up for the job. It also feels like entry level positions have shifted meaning, and most companies do not understand 3 to 5 years of experience shouldn't be considered an entry level role. What are our thoughts on that?
Well, I could go first on that if everybody's okay with that. Um, well, first of all, from the hiring manager perspective, the reason I guess you would say like you do got some of those ghost jobs, right? We do have to post things internally first, right? So to give the our internal team members a chance to apply for that. But that doesn't necessarily mean that just because that post is up there, it's a ghost job. We just got to go through the hiring process, right? The just go through the rules, right, and try to give our internal candidates a fair shot first. They not every company practices that, but sometimes that's the case. And just because it's posted internally does not necessarily mean that there's going to be a viable candidate that's can fill in that particular position. But don't get discouraged because even in my position now, I mean, if let's just say if I was trying to go get a job, even though nowadays I'm turning down more jobs than anything, but even if I wanted a particular job, I would have to apply to about 50 to 60 different jobs before I could get an interview. That's just the nature of the market. So whatever you can do in your field to make yourself stand out, I recommend going for it. Do what you have to do to make sure that your resume is like literally that shining star on a pretty much large stack of paper.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I very much agree with what Giovanni says on a couple of different points. One would be for some companies, there's a teeter-totter effect, right? Some companies have a culture. Our company has a culture that we attempt to promote and hire from within. And it's interesting. When you're trying to get one of your first jobs, you're hoping that isn't the case. And then you get a job and you really hope it is the case. Because once you're in, if you're looking to move your career on, you're hoping somebody doesn't come flying in over you and take the job that you might want to get promoted into. The reality is hiring managers are often just looking for the best candidate, and that might be internal or it might be external. Um, I'm not sure about ghost posting of jobs. I think that's related to there's already a person that you've identified internally and you've got to go through the HR process. That does happen, but if that happens, I can tell you it's because companies are following a process where they got to post a job. And more often than not, if somebody really is earmarked for that, that job posting isn't going to be out there for that long because they're going to move somebody into that position sooner rather than later. If a job post has been out there for a little while, they really are probably looking for the best candidate or looking to hire externally. And even for me, even if I have somebody who I'm thinking about promoting into a position or hiring into a position, you still look for the best candidate. What I can also say is there's likely very few, if ever, ghost positions that are put out there and are purely ghosted, right? None of us have time to post positions that we're really not going to be recruiting for and kind of go through that process. But it is a bit of it's a balancing act, and it's a balancing act for managers and supervisors if you're trying to promote from within at a healthy pace while also bringing in good talent externally.
Awesome. I think Wes, this question kind of taps into something that someone asks farther down. So we'll kind of hit both of those. Like, I think this also speaks to just the power and importance of networking. And I'm going to also drop in the chat a link to People Grove where you can connect with alums who, like Cal Poly alums, who have said, I'm here and available to help support, reach out, and we will respond, whether it's resume reviews or answering questions or maybe meeting up for a video chat. So building those connections and relationships within those companies can be really helpful in your job search. And I don't know if if we feel like this is a great example panel, but an example I've shared with students is, if you're in a grocery store and you're looking at a bunch of options, if you have an opportunity to get a referral from a friend, right? If I'm looking at a bunch of pizzas and someone says this pizza is the best, you should try it. Like I'm probably going to be more likely to go with that. If I have an opportunity to sample, I do an internship with a company, right? And they really get a chance to work with me and kind of see what it would be like to have me in the team, then I might have a lot more confidence and that might sway my decision. So building those relationships, having those connections, which I feel like a number of our panelists have spoken to, can really help you along as well.
If I may, I have a great example of that.
Perfect.
This past year, I did move out of LA County to the Central Valley, right? And that was just taking a job that was actually offered right through LinkedIn. But because I actually decided to take this particular position, which I'm in now, I was able to develop a lot more personal connections with local leaders, right? Now, I'm not talking about just your regular business individuals, right? But we're talking a little bit more in the academic realm as well. All it really took for me to develop that connection was to send an email to my local community college to say, hey, you know what? I'm so and so. I would like to, maybe get together with you. I mean, let's see what kind of networking we could do, right? It took just that little step, and to be honest, because of that, I was able to connect to other individuals, such as superintendents for Kings County. And mind you, yes, I am in the Fresno County area now. It's a much smaller city, but we're sitting now with doctors, lawyers, superintendents, right? People of stature that can help you elevate yourself. So sometimes it's really just taking one initial step that will lead to a broader network. You never know. Maybe you might have to move outside of the city like me, but I'm not saying you should, right? But sometimes opportunities present themselves in places you will never even imagine.
Awesome. No, thank you. Great example. Lydia Chen, I know Natalie answered a little bit of your question. Lydia Chen, just want to open it to the panel as well. Like, how do you stay in touch with people that you've connected with, without letting them feel like I'm only talking to them just because I'm job hunting?
Yeah, I'd like to speak on this a little bit actually. I was waiting to speak because I wanted to connect the last question to this question because I feel like as somebody who just stepped out of college, a lot of what I did as an undergrad was work on my soft skills. And I think I hate saying it that way though, because they really are hard skills now. But I think going into college, I had that perception that all this work that I was doing in networking and learning how to speak in front of people, connect, and build those soft skills wasn't going to land me a job as well as developing my hard skills. And I think that's something that we've all been taught, especially those in my generation. It's like, go to college and you're going to get a job after that. But nobody really tells you the benefits of actually connecting with people who are already in the industry, professors, alumni, et cetera, et cetera. And I think going back to Wes's question real quick, I think that's just the nature of so much of our market being online. It's not something that previous generations have necessarily experienced in the past, right? We're online, we're seeing these jobs all day, every day. We see everything under the sun. And so, of course, we're going to experience those issues much more often, right? The ghost jobs, or finding those entry-level experiences or jobs with 3 to 5 years of experience mandatory, right? That's just the nature of online. But where I found the most success was by connecting with those already in the industries I had my eye on campus and off campus. And so I think that leads into Lydia's question a little bit in terms of connecting with people without it feeling like you're just job hunting. There's a great way to go about it. I think just telling your story and hearing what their story is so important in building those relationships. Whether it is like I connected with her at an event actually, and she's reached out to me. She's like, I just want to go grab coffee and get to know you a little bit more. That's perfect, right? Just connecting with alumni and like what Natalie has said too, like come to events. The more face time that you spend with people, the more opportunity you're going to find. Just going to class, just sitting on LinkedIn trying to find jobs, it might get you somewhere, of course, like building that experience in that way, through technology and through our, building our hard skills, but building those soft skills, learning to communicate and just spending time with people is going to be so crucial to how quickly you succeed and step into the workforce. So I think Lydia, too, we talked about this a little bit at the last event that I saw you at. It is just so important to get to know the person sitting across from you, spend a little bit of time and be honest, right? Tell them your story and tell them what you're looking for, but mostly what you're passionate about. Because when you really truly mean what you're saying, people want to talk to you. They want to develop a relationship with you and they'll know what you want. Right? If I have some coffee with Jason and I tell him, where I came from, what I've been doing, and I listen to his journey too, I'll get to a point where I'm like, you know what? I'd love to connect again and maybe talk a little bit about some more advice that you would have for me and maybe keep your eyes and ears open for anything that I might be interested in. Just being really honest and genuine gets you so far. And I think that's something that, well, I know that's something that we're not necessarily taught. Just going through school in my specific generation, Gen Z, right? And what we have been taught was just build the hard school skills, get through school, get your degree, and you're going to get a job. But that's just not the case, right? So, and going back to what Jason has touched on earlier as well, it takes time. All 5 years that I spent at Pomona, I was building on my hard skills, sure, but I was putting myself out there. I was taking opportunities, taking any internship I could. I was getting involved in any way that I could because I knew, even though maybe I was told the opposite, I knew at some point that that would pay off, and that got me some amazing connections to people outside of academia. So I think that being straightforward and honest, but passionate about with what you're thinking and saying, and then just spending more time with people, older, younger, doesn't really matter who you're spending time with, just put the effort in, doors will open up.
Nice. Thanks, Megan.
Not that you want me to, but I go on about this for hours, I feel like. So, a few things. One, people growth. So a couple of things. People grow and then people reaching out and what have you. I could not agree more, first off, with a lot of what Megan said. She's right on about being honest and putting yourself out there and what have you. Trust me, when you can find a few things. You will be really shocked and surprised how willing alumni are to help you out if you're genuine and honest. Look, if you are about to graduate, you've just graduated, there is no surprise to any alumni that you are likely looking for a job, right? We know why people are reaching out and what have you. And that's okay. We were all there at one point. So we totally get it. We totally understand. But here's a few things that will either drive alumni crazy or will get alumni's attention. I respond and I accept every invitation that comes to me through People Growth. Everyone. I am shocked and everyone I do the following. I will give every person that reaches out to me, I give them my personal email and I give them my cell phone. And I would say, not that I've had, dozens and dozens and dozens, but maybe 1 or 2 out of 10 will follow up. That shocks me. Like, I can't believe that people go through the effort to actually reach out and then never follow up. I've got a pretty simple leadership philosophy, which is show up, create value, and tell the story. And so people are actually taking the first step kind of to show up, and then they don't follow up afterwards is just shocking to me. I would gladly talk to somebody about their career or help them or refer to them somebody if I could, or whatever it might be. Happy to do so. I'm also often surprised that almost every outreach I've ever received through People Grove, and to be fair, I've never initiated the outreach, I've always received them. But just about everyone follows the exact same script when they reach out to me. So I don't know if there's just an AI script that pops up and people just put their name on it and hit send. But the word, I could probably copy and paste 20 of them and they read the exact same way. Just a little bit of difference, just a few different words could totally set yourself apart on how you reach out to people as well. And saying things like, I'd like to learn about your career. I'd like to learn about your industry. I'd like to learn about some of those things. And I get that some of that's already in that script. I get it. But just making things there is a little bit different it's shocking how little it takes to stand out, at least using People Grove to reach out to people, and then showing up in the second way. The second thing is value. I'm gonna, like I said, you're gonna hear me say it probably 100 times. Um, where there's opportunity where you can provide value for somebody else before you're asking for something for yourself, you will be like, there is this golden rule in life that happens over and over again. If you can help somebody else in some small way, whatever it might be, even if it's something where, hey, I see that you might know somebody, or you're in this, I know this person, maybe I could connect to you, whatever that little piece of value might be, two things happen. One, people don't see you as kind of showing up and asking for, hey, how you can help me right away. That's one. Two, there's this concept of reciprocity that shows up over and over, which is if you help somebody, there is the little lizard part of our brain that kicks in and says, "Ooh, I should probably try and help that person as well." No matter often, even what it is. And there are all of these different examples of how reciprocity drives sales and other things kind of in life. But I encourage you, one, show up, reach out through LinkedIn, reach out through People Grove. It's okay to ask of, hey, I'd like to learn from you. You'll be surprised of how alumni will react to that, or others will react to that, because people, I think, generally like to help other people if they can, especially if we already have a connection that we're fellow alumni, or you're coming out of school and is there a way to help you? And then if there ever are ways that you can provide value for somebody, do it, and you will be shocked at truly how that can come back to you tenfold at times over the course of your career, and how surprisingly it shows back up in ways you would have never expected.
Jason, I think this question might help a few people, but why do you feel nobody reaches out or follows up?
But So I'm not sure. This is now you're going to get into Jason's dime store psychology class. I feel like some people are checking the box when they reach out through People Grove, or they're doing other things. They're doing the thing that somebody said I should reach out through People Grove, so I reach out through People Grove, or I should have a LinkedIn profile, so I just create a LinkedIn profile. It's not really what people are saying. People are saying, here is a tool that allows you access to people that have a level of connectivity with you already. Don't just show up and follow the exact same script and reach out to people and then not follow up. Um, I I I think, I don't know if it's laziness. I don't know if it's they get scared because they don't know what the second piece is. I don't know if they get afraid because I actually give my cell phone and email address, and then what do I do with that? I'm not quite sure. It might also be as simple as, it, what's that old Mike Tyson story, right? Everybody has a game plan until you get hit in the face the first time. You actually get the response, and then now what I do with it? Oh my God, do I really have the soft skills, which I totally agree with Megan, are really hard skills at this point in life? To then, am I ready to go have a conversation? Oh my gosh, Albert works for the Federal Reserve. Am I going to go ask, and he knows AI and blockchain. Am I going to go ask Albert questions about AI and blockchain? Yeah, he's the perfect guy to ask questions about AI and what have you. It's great. It's totally great. So
Real quick, because Giovanni, I love that you asked that
Yeah.
question, because I was going to ask a follow-up question as well. And students, feel free to like jump in the chat on this if you want. But because one thing I hear from students in the classroom, and honestly, most often when I do my LinkedIn, like a version of my LinkedIn workshop, and we're talking about kind of reaching out to folks, like the most common question and thing that we just anticipate including now is like, okay, I found this great person, like, what do I say? And the kind of general vibe and feedback I get in small groups and classes and clubs is kind of what you hit on, Jason. I want to open this up to the whole group. Is what would you say to students who genuinely are feeling very unsure and afraid? And like, I think sometimes the generosity and openness of our alumni to just be present, I think it shocks them sometimes. And they're like, I don't know what to do with it. And I think it almost like gets them second guessing themselves. And unsure like how to proceed from there. And Megan, I know you were maybe in this space most recently, so maybe you can speak to this too, either from your personal experience or friends. But that's like, I know there's lots of different reasons, but I do think one of the reasons sometimes can be like fear and uncertainty.
Yes. I think where it all, I've thought about this so often, especially just coming out of school. in my opinion, it really comes down to the education that my generation has gone through. We are not taught, right, how to communicate very well. I think the experience or the education that is directly linked to how I communicate, maybe in high school, I mean, I had some really great English teachers that helped me just learn how to write really effectively. But that's really all that I could say is the experience and education that I received in terms of how to communicate properly. Outside of that, we were never necessarily encouraged to connect. I don't think education is necessarily caught up with technology either. Um, I mean, you could say that about so many different things too, right? That laws haven't necessarily caught up with it either, right? But going through our educational system and not being necessarily taught how to adapt, to connect with people, and also just not being encouraged to do that, I think is now showing in those of us who are stepping into the workforce. And so I hear that sometimes, like Jason, I know you mentioned the word lazy. Like that's something that we hear, older, like even like grandparents, that are the boomer generation, for example, saying about Gen Z very often, but they're not taking into consideration the technology boom that we experienced as kids and how little our education system prepared us for that. And I think that that's now showing in those of us stepping into the workforce in general. And so not understanding really, I think there are a couple things. One, not understanding fully how to communicate with others and put yourself out there because we weren't encouraged to do that growing up necessarily. Um, and two, not really. I think because our whole life is like on our phone or on our computer, we're always overwhelmed. There are so many things to do and think about, and our whole life is on it. And so I think a combination of not knowing how to necessarily do it because we haven't been taught or encouraged, and also that side of everything is in one spot, not being able to separate it anymore, is playing a role in how we are communicating now. And it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate for those of us my age who are stepping into the workforce and not really understanding which direction to take, or just having so much anxiety because we've worked so hard to just get perfect grades and be amazing at the sport we did or the extracurricular we did. And now everything is so much more competitive. And so there's a lot of pressure to be perfect without, like you said, Jason, learning how to fail, having those hard critical conversations, getting that difficult feedback. We're not necessarily taught that anymore. And so I spent so much time in undergrad pushing myself out of my zone. I think I do give credit to my parents, just being a little bit older parents and pushing me to do that, but also catching on to that very early on and how little we are taught to navigate and adapt to the technology that's being thrown at us from a young age. So hopefully that gives some answers and maybe some background info to just what my generation has been facing. And I think that in the conversations that I have with students my age who are graduating or about to graduate, I talk to them about that all the time. I mean, I think I talked to Lydia like an hour at the last networking event that we had just about that, and when the power of communicating and put yourself out there, outside of the technology and everything we've necessarily been taught. So hopefully that gives some background. I feel like I could write a book about this.
I feel like I hear from students, Megan, that like they're afraid, like I think they're sometimes surprised. They don't expect someone to include like their personal email and cell phone number. So I think that startles them. And then sometimes like they're just so afraid of saying the wrong thing then at that point, which I know is counterintuitive because that was the whole point of the outreach in the first place. But it's so interesting. And what would we say to try and encourage students to kind of push past that, to like push through that, to really take advantage of those moments?
Well, two pieces. One is just evidence of the alumni's interest in helping. There are, this might be a bit of an exaggeration, but I don't think it's far off. I think there are literally 100 or hundreds more alumni that volunteer for professor for a day than the school can use. Like there are so many more alumni that want to come back and help and do alumni for a day than professors have. There's no way you could use every alumni that actually want to come back and help. And I don't think it's because the alumni secretly really want to be a teacher. They want to come back and help, and they want to share what's in their career and any of that sort of thing. So that's one. There is a real genuine interest along the way. So there you go. Thank you, Andrew. Yeah, 300, and we use, I don't know, something much less than a fraction of those is really what ends up getting used at the end of the day. That's one. Here's another, here's a life lesson that's taken me a really long time to learn and accept and swallow. The stories we tell ourselves are so much worse than what life actually turns out to be. All right. You get caught up in your head. What am I going to say when I call and I talk to Megan? Oh my gosh, what questions am I going to ask? Is Megan to think that I'm really dumb? Is she going to think that I don't know how to communicate? Like the you get yourself swirling in your head about these types of things. In my career, I can tell you, I get myself wrapped around the axles of, ooh, performance hasn't gone well for this client, but I know I need to call this client. Oh my God, they're going to yell at me when I call them. What's this? This is going to be the worst thing ever. And then I call, and that conversation is nothing like what I thought it was going to be. Right? People are understanding, or people get it, or you just if you're honest and you're open with people and you have the conversation, the story is so much worse than you can ever imagine. I'll find this book and I'll mention it in just a minute. I read what I thought was the most simplest of books, and I probably, well, I know I use it almost every day just to get out of bed. This simple idea of when you're going to do something that you don't want to do, or there's something you're struggling with, is simply to count backwards from 5 to 1. And by the time that you hit 1, you have to be taking action and motion towards what you didn't want to do, whether that's getting out of bed in the morning, whether it's picking up the phone to call an angry client, whatever it might be. And once again, I'll find this and I'll reference it in a second of what that actual book is. But there's science behind it that once you kind of get your brain wrapped around this and you're moving towards it, you will do it. And I tell you, every once in a while, will it be as bad as the story was? Sure. Okay, live through those, and it's a good lesson. And frankly, you learn more in the hard times than you do in the great times anyways in life, I do believe. But if you just take the steps, you'll find that you can start to talk down that voice in your head when you realize the voice in your head is so much more negative than what life turns out to really be, especially in those interactions. And especially, as Megan had said, if you just show up being genuine. Hey, I'm trying to find a job coming out of college. Can you tell me about your career? Can you tell me about things that helped you? I'm trying to get into this certain thing. Are there any alumni you think that you could refer me to? Or, what would you do if you were in my shoes? You will be surprised at how people will try and help. And maybe not everybody will be able to do it, but if you reach out enough times, I'm telling you, there will be people who will want to help.
We're just like you guys. At the end of the day, we were there too. We failed. I know I failed a class, actually a couple classes, you know, and we've gone through just the exact same stuff. But if you're gonna fail fast, learn from it, and that's honestly what's gonna give you that experience, and you'll be able to give that to somebody else.
I was telling somebody yesterday I had to take accounting twice as an undergraduate, and now I'm explaining P&Ls to private equity boards. Like, it's
Right?
the craziest dumb thing that I would have never planned on, right?
Hey, I took business calculus twice, so it happens.
Business calculus, that's another one we were talking about yesterday. I add, subtract, divide, and multiply.
Right?
Let's get into analytics. It's just funny.
Yeah, I really like the quote, you miss 100 shots. Sorry. What is it? I'm like blanking.
It's every shot.
You're on it. You're on it.
Long day again. But I think I really like that quote because it really has pushed me in situations where I am anxious about maybe getting a bad response or not going through that experience the way maybe I built it in my head. I always remind myself of that because really the more the merrier. You just keep doing it and you're consistent, even if it is just connecting with people, like on LinkedIn, for example. Like that's something that I've encouraged my sister to do. Right. She's studying computer science right now. She'll be done in a couple years. And she's in this phase where she's like, okay, I don't even know which direction to go. I mean, like, who do I talk to? What do I do? And I was like, LinkedIn, right? Like go to the different industries or specific companies that maybe you would like to work at and look at the connections. And you'll see people there who went to Cal Poly Pomona and just say, hey, I'd love to learn more about how you got to this company or any advice that you could give me. Just being, doing that consistently, at some point, somebody's going to say something. Whether or not it's positive or negative, you're going to get something out of it and learn. And I think I've always had to push myself to just take everything, go into everything as a learning lesson, whether it's going to be positive or negative, just know that I'm going to learn something from it. And that kind of encourages me, going back to us saying we're lifelong learners. I think that that pushes me to go do the things that are, really uncomfortable. Just as I was talking about our generation experiencing like never really failing is something we didn't feel like we could afford to do. But now I step into the world and I'm like, I want to do that all the time. I want to go try new things and fail and learn and get better because that's what's going to push me and I'll find more success that way rather than just hoping that something will come to me. So I love, yeah, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Exactly. I love that one. Thanks, Beth.
No problem. You were right there. You're there.
That book I referred to is The 5 Second Rule by Mel Robbins. Even if you just go read a synopsis, but it literally, I'll synopsis the whole thing. Count backwards from 5 down to 1, and by the time before you hit 1, be taking action in whatever it is that you are scared or don't want to do. I bet 90% of the time I count from 5 to 1 as I am trying to get out of bed in the morning. I count from 5 to 1 as I'm going to call that client that I have told myself in my head is pissed off at me and is going to yell at me. And then I get on the phone and they are just another human trying to make it through the day as well, and we figure it out. I'll do it with other alumni. Like, oh man, I'm gonna call and that person's like super successful or whatever. How am I gonna have a conversation with that guy? And then I talk to him. It's like, man, I love that guy, or I love that gal. That was the most incredible thing I ever did. And a part of it is just showing up. Most people just don't even show up to the conversation, to the outreach, to whatever it might be. I truly believe that is a big part of it is just showing up. In fact, my partner and my girlfriend and I, we talk about how often what a great life we have because more often than not, when one of us says, do we really want to go to that party tonight? Or do we really want to go to that event? And then the other one goes, we're going. This is what we do. We show up and fun stuff happens, like great stuff happens. And then you show up and we're driving home and I'm like, I can't believe what tonight turned out to be. And I wanted to sit on the couch and not go out tonight. And all we had to do was show up. It is shocking when you just show up. I didn't want to go to a board meeting today at Cal Poly this morning. Like I'm getting ready and I gotta put on, I get to sit all day here and wear basketball shorts and a button-down shirt and pretend like I'm professional. And I got to put on actual pants and go to something today. And I showed up and I loved hanging out with the group today and I learned new things. Like it was a great experience. And it just showing up is so important. That'll be a
Great,
nickel psychology.
great questions, chat. Thank you so much for kind of bringing up some really great topics and wonderful insights, panel. Thank you so much. Does chat have any more questions before we kind of start moving to some of our closeout questions? And I dropped a link to the Audible version of the book Jason was referencing for folks who are looking for it.
Hey, here's another good one out there too. And
Yeah.
you'd be surprised at how many CEOs I have had tell me to read this, and I've been telling CEOs is the AI-driven leader. And what's, especially folks who are worried about, AI and what have you. And what I like about it is it talks about AI as a tool. It's just another tool that you have to try and drive things. And you really have to have a strategy first, and then you can apply AI as a tool. And so if you want to maybe get a look into even how executives and leaders are thinking about AI, that's another kind of really interesting book that I know a number of us have been reading and looking into. And actually, I've been really surprised that when I bring it up to people, how many have taken a look at it or have already had it referred to them. I was trying to look and see if I could see who the author was. I'm sure you guys will find it before I can. But it's fascinating. And the other thing I take away from it is they have a quote in there that he says all the time, which is, it's hard to read the label when you're inside the box. And I just joined a new company where I'm president, and I show up and I start asking questions, and people are like, "Oh, it's a really interesting question." Well, they've been living in the box for the last few years, and so it's hard for them to read the label on the outside of the box when they've really been inside of it. When you interview, if you've taken a little bit of time to research a company, whatever else, you might be able to show up with questions that really set you apart because you're asking questions because you're reading the label because you're on the outside of the box.
And Jason, perfect segue to, I mean, a question I love to ask alums to share with students. Any like books you're reading that you recommend, podcasts you're listening to, YouTube, whatever it is that you're like, this has been really helpful or influential, or that I'm just really finding insightful in this moment or in the past.
Yeah, I was gonna add on to that too, Beth, since we started talking about books. Atomic Habits. I know that book is pretty popular, but I mean it's popular for a reason. I think when it came to the end, of my college career, I think it was like midway through, actually, when I started reading it. And I've read it twice now, I believe, up till this point. But it has done such a good job of breaking down what it means to become the person you want to be. And I think a lot of questions that I get from students as I've stepped into the workforce is, well, how did you get this far? Like, how are you this way? How are you able, to speak in front of hundreds of people? How, and why? Right? I get those questions a lot, and I was like, if I went back 5 years, maybe 10 years, it doesn't. I don't look like the same Megan. I am not the same Megan, and it took so much time. Like that's something that we mentioned at the very beginning was practice and practice and practice. And what Atomic Habits does or did for me was show, yeah, just right there in the title, tiny changes, remarkable results, right? Those tiny, tiny changes, both good and bad, right? Either breaking down bad habits or building up good habits. I think we just naturally as humans, we want to hit that goal so badly. And a lot of the times we don't even try to attempt to reach it because it seems way too big for us to get to. And so breaking down those goals is so helpful and something that Atomic Habits taught me. Now reading it twice, I think about it almost every day. In the morning, right? What Jason was talking about, just the feeling of getting up, and I'm like, okay, this is a bad habit that I've set 10 alarms, and there's no way I can't continue that, right? So it's like breaking it down a little bit and maybe just doing 9 alarms or, like it's small, but over time it does add up, and it does end up what's the word? You see results. There we go. Results, that word. You will see results over time, but I think patience is something that technology specifically has made us or forget, right? Just patience in general and the importance of practice and time, especially with us that are so young. For those on the call who are maybe about to graduate or who are students, like we have so much time, which is encouraging, right? So take advantage of it and just start practicing, getting rid of the bad habits, building up the good ones. But yeah, I love that book.
If
Yeah,
you want to
one of
piggyback
the
on,
books
go ahead, go ahead.
I'd love for you to go. No, no,
No, no,
I'd
no,
love for you to go, Giovanni.
I was
Giovanni,
gonna
go
say
ahead.
happier hour. If you want to cut out the waste, just like Megan said, Happier Hour is a great book. It helps you structure yourself, especially for those people or those students right now that are still in their sophomore year, going to junior year. I recommend that.
Yeah, thank you, Giovanni. That's a really good one. One book that I have historically, there's so many of them, but I think applicably for this session we have today is a book called Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. And this book articulates the different ways that the brain thinks. There is a slow, strategic portion of the mind's thinking process, as well as a second component which is a much more rapid and quick firing thought process, which is oftentimes a lot less accurate in the answers that you're able to produce. Turns out you might find out following reading this book that you are one or the other type of mindsets. I know that for me, I very much appreciate thinking the slow, methodical, extremely accurate way. It just takes a while to think that way, right? You've got to work really hard to make sure it's proper. That is a fantastic book, particularly for our students that are going through their academic journeys.
I'll bring up two other books that maybe people hear about them, I think, all the time in management, but I'll bring them up for two reasons. One, if nothing else, know what your leadership teams, especially if they're of an older generation or two, have likely read, and it might drive how they think.
Mm.
And the other reason is just it might also help you think about, even if you're not in management yet, but you've aspirations to get into management, how you can kind of think about how management tends to think, or how they might be kind of, leaning on things. I I go back to Patrick Lencioni's Five Dysfunctions of a Team all the time, and I would say that it's that for me has probably taught me one of my core lessons in life, not just in business, but in life in general, which is the foundation of all relationships is trust. And think about that, right? If you think about a relationship you've had with somebody, and if they've broken your trust, how hard it is to ever get that back, if you ever really can get that back. And that if you build a foundation of trust, you then get in a position. Think about people who you can have a hard conversation with. It's probably because you've got a great deal of trust in them, and they've got a great deal of trust in you. And if you're going to have successful teams, at times you have to have difficult conversations. But if you can have trust and have difficult conversations, you can do the things to ultimately achieve great things. That's really the sort of what the foundation of Patrick Lencioni's, Five Dysfunctions of a Team. Now, he goes about it talking about how you break all those things to then rebuild, or to build all of those things. But that is definitely one. The other one, and people don't go for this one quite as much anymore, but Good to Great, by Jim Collins. Now, people will say, yeah, but look at, all those companies are out of business now, or most of them are out of business now, whatever. Yeah, well, it's, 20, 30 years probably since he wrote the book. That being said, what's interesting about it is it talks about how these either small decisions or even really big, crazy decisions cause companies to go in totally different ways that allow them to go from good to great. It tells some really interesting business stories to think about, but I think it also allows you to think about different strategies over time of, wow, when this company who thought that they didn't realize that you have all these big buildings, and really a big value you have is real estate, or you move from one strategy to a totally different strategy. It creates an entirely new business, or an entirely new business line. If nothing else, just to kind of open your eyes to what other opportunities might be out there. And what I think it really drives you towards is leadership. As long as they're fairly solid, and are open to this. You probably got to figure it out, that answer out first. But I know as a leader, I love when people ask good questions. Hey, have we thought about doing this thing this way? Or I've been thinking about this. We do this thing all the way over here, but we might be able to save some time if we did this thing over here. Or we've got all these great assets. What if we applied them to do this different thing? Is another way to set yourself apart. And that's a part of what I think Good to Great speaks to, is leaders and management who made some really interesting decisions that in the moment might have sounded kind of crazy, but you look back on them and go, either A, that was brilliant, or how did you not see making that kind of decision would turn into something great. I think it's just another one to think about.
So I do want to do, for anyone who's watching this later, a little shout out to Natalie's suggestion of Lead from the Outside by Stacey Abrams. And I'm glad we've added some of these to our lists. One last question to kind of round out the night for folks. So advice we have for seniors, whether it's something you wish you had done differently, or wish you had known, or if it helps to kind of just think about, like, if this was your last opportunity to speak into one of the Cal Poly Pomona seniors' life before they kind of head out into the big world after graduation, what advice or guidance would you offer to them?
You can see the wheels turning in everybody's head.
It's taking a minute. Taking a minute.
I would encourage everybody, and this is the point that I often tell just about everybody that I talk to, is to use artificial intelligence. Become familiar with using artificial intelligence. The large language models are a variety of them. Some of the more popular ones are Gemini, there are Claude, there's ChatGPT. I would use those as often as and as comfortably as I can throughout my daily life, both personally, professionally, as permitted, of course, academically, with ethical considerations, of course, and understand how to leverage these tools so that you have a competitive edge in the labor market, because that's who you're competing. You're competing against the highest performing people. And why are they the highest performing people? Because large language models are the highest performing, articulate uh, producers of work in collaboration with people. That's who you're competing with. So I would use AI as much as I can in everything I do. And oftentimes that's easier to do in your personal lives, get comfortable with it, and then roll it into, of course, with consideration to ethics, as well as doing it appropriately into your academic and professional careers.
Thanks, Albert.
I would probably say, if I was looking back, you know what? Don't be afraid to step out of your comfort zone, take a chance. Because one of the things that I see nowadays, and it's really prevalent in the area that I moved to, complacency. That is the biggest enemy you can have. Never get complacent. Always take those chances. Try and try, reach out. Even if you're an introvert, try to break out of that shell. But whatever you're doing, take a chance. That's my 2 cents.
Very nice. Thank you, Giovanni.
Hard for me not to answer this in like 26 parts. I got one answer.
I know.
There's a,
Jason, I feel like sometimes our brains might work maybe the same way. So I'm gonna try to not go on a rant either. I think I want to provide a little bit of reassurance centered around the word try. I think as long as you are trying, you are not failing. And it kind of connects what maybe Gio was saying as well, right? When you're just stepping into the world, do not go in with the goal to find the perfect job, right? Just try things, try and learn. And as long as you're doing that, you're not failing. And if for those of you on the call, this is considered trying, right? You're out there and you're connecting with us, you're hearing from us. You're not failing. I think that's something that we just experience so much pressure coming out of college, especially just in this world, in this economy right now, in this job market. Speaking from, myself stepping into it, just try. You won't be a failure if you continue to try. The second you stop trying, maybe you might. So just try. I think that's probably the best reassurance and a little piece of advice that I could give for those of you seniors now.
and not to be totally repetitive of some of the things I said, but I guess I could sum it up as saying show up, but I'll describe it a little bit differently. When I was a senior, when I was going through college, I probably would have thought about my real, if you said, who's your community? I would have thought about my friends and my family is my community. Not realizing, and I hope a part of what you can take away from this call is your community is actually a lot bigger than you might already realize. And you would be surprised, I think, if you reached out to people, reached out to alumni and what have you, and just simply show up. If you are live on this call now, you've shown up, as Pagan said. If you are listening to this afterwards, you have shown up. If you reach out on People Grow, you reach out on LinkedIn, and you take just a little bit of a risk, and you just soften that voice that's in the back of your head telling you that things are going to go awfully wrong, they're not. Just show up and take a little bit of a risk, and you will be surprised what will happen to you in life. And then if you can just keep following through on that, reach out to one more person, try one more time, do one more thing that might feel a little bit scary, and then rejoice in how good it feels when it turns out to be totally different and totally better than what you thought it was going to be if you were a little bit scared. You'll be surprised at how big your community really is right now and how many people are out there open and willing to help. They don't know how to get a hold of you or that you need it. So you got to take some first step to reach out. And there's a lot more people that will help you, I think, is if you just give it a little bit of a try and follow through.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Our panel, this was amazing. You're all phenomenal. We're so lucky to have you. And again, our alumni are so wonderful in general and so generous with their time. I did drop their LinkedIn links in the chat. I also dropped People Grow. So if you want to check that out, you want Jason's email and phone number, hit him up.
Get it.
If you want to set up appointments with some of our wonderful alumni who are coming out to do resume reviews, especially in the next couple of weeks in preparation for the College of Business Career Expo on Tuesday, March 24th. I dropped that in the chat as well. Thank you everyone for joining us. For those of you watching later, thanks for tuning in and catching up with our wonderful alumni. Albert, I'll turn it back to you to close us out.
Thank you, Bethany. And wow, what an incredible evening this was. I want to extend a massive thank you. I know we're saying a whole bunch of thank yous today, but to our distinguished alumni panelists over here on our call, thanks so much for your time and for taking so much of your valuable time out of your busy, busy days. I know how busy it's been for everybody, and sharing your career journeys and your life lessons, as well as the invaluable advice that you have had to share with us today. Your transparency and willingness to give back to the next generation, all the folks that are over here on our meeting of business leaders, is exactly what makes Cal Poly Pomona a community that is so special. Also want to thank Beth Lee for all of your expertise, as well as for expertly moderating tonight's session. Beth Lee, your passion for student success always shines through. Every single time I chat with you and I interact with you and I see you around, you're a famous figure here at Cal Poly, and we're so grateful for you, for everything that you're doing for the CBA community as well as the CBA Career Hub. And to our students and young alumni in our audience, take today's lessons to heart. Don't wait. I would say now is the time to start executing your personal career development plans right now. You've had a great conversation back and forth, submitting questions. I highly encourage you to utilize the CBA Career Hub. Consider reaching out with Beth Lee and her team, and definitely continue reaching out to our esteemed alumni network. As a quick reminder, I do want to take this moment to keep the momentum going. Please RSVP to our upcoming events so that we can all see you in person. For our students here on the call, our virtual session, we do have C-Barn coming up on Friday, April 10th. We have the AI Info session that is occurring on Tuesday, April 28th. And later in our academic year, we also have 2 financial literacy workshops, one on Tuesday, April 14th, as well as Tuesday, April 13th. You could find the registration link for all these events in the Cal Poly Pomona alumni website. I also noticed that we have a very special guest here, Andrea, who also posted a whole lot of links. I do want to say hello to Andrea, who serves as our Associate Director and of Chapter and Alumni Programs at the Cal Poly Pomona Alumni and External Relationships team. She coordinates all of our events, including this event. She sets up our Zoom meetings. She basically works to ensure that we have some of the best flyers that I have ever seen. They look gorgeous. Thank you for coordinating that, as well as setting up our Eventbrite registrations for all of us to connect with. She powers our ability to connect amongst each other. She is our connecting hub. So Andrea, thank you so much. I do want to recognize some of our esteemed alumni. I see on our meeting today, I see we have Alex on our call. Hello, Alex. I also see Jasmine. Hello to Jasmine. I also see Natalie. Hey, Natalie. Hello to everybody. And again, once more, I want to thank all of our students for being a part of this journey. And I would hope that you have a great rest of your day. Have a great one. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Go Broncos. Woo!